Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Pattison Ave Phanatics Show. I'm your host, Tom Kelly. With me, as always, these handsome gentlemen, Joseph Marks.
Good morning, Philadelphia.
James Scorza.
Yeah, I'm on.
Don't know where everybody else is. We'll figure it out. It's all good. You got our ugly mugs today.
Well, Frank's playing tea party with his granddaughter, so.
No, that's okay. That's absolutely okay. And, I mean, Damon Salim doesn't even make it on time when he doesn't have to drive anywhere, so it's quite all right. We love
DSL traffic is a bitch.
Yes. The World Wide Web. What's he have? Dial-up? I don't know.
No, that's the other guy. That
I know. It's all right. Out of the gate, it's still a phenomenal time to be a sports fan in this city. I don't know about you, gentlemen, but just everywhere you turn, there's news. Now, look, some of it's not good. We'll get into the Hoskins stuff. Some of it's kind of scary. Mike Glaro checking in, my man Mike. Good morning, Michael. And of course, I think our number one friend of the show, Deal, Norm.
Norm.
So, good morning to all those at Deals on Wheels are there in the lobby. Get yourself a cup of coffee and strap in for the show. James, move closer to the camera. You've disappeared into the brick wall. There you are.
I'm running through the brick wall, brother.
James said I'll run through a brick wall for the Pattison Ave Phanatics. And
just like Pink Floyd, don't be a brick in the wall.
All in all, it's just another brick in the wall, boys.
Yep.
Starting out of the gate with the Phils here. How do you guys feel about Aaron Nola taking the hill for opening day for the 6th straight season? James, what do you think, man?
Yeah, it's pretty cool when you think about it. I think having Aaron Nola go on opening day for the last, like you said, what was it, 6 years?
Six seasons. Yep.
6 seasons. Wow, that's pretty astounding, man. Yeah, and the only thing I like about it too, we don't have to see Jake DeGrom anymore. We'll see him one time and we'll be done for the rest of the season.
There you go, Joey. Are you good with Nola taking the hill for opening day, or would you have liked to have seen somebody else back on the bump?
I honestly would have liked to have seen someone else. I would have liked to have seen Wheeler, because I would think more Wheeler.
Fuge.
I think Wheeler is more I know Nola and Wheeler are both the aces in this rotation,
right?
But I think Wheeler's more the polished ace than Nola, and we all know that with Nola, he has a good season and he has a bad season. He had a good season last year, and I get it. He's got to break the trend at some point, but I just worry about. I would rather have the more polished ace on the mound.
If I had to put all my money on something, I would have pushed it all into the middle of the table that you would have wanted someone other than Nola to take the hill on the opening. I felt it in my bones. I felt it somewhere else that begins with a B, but we're FCC regulated. Yeah. So, no, look, I would have liked to have seen Wheeler myself too, just to, 6 seasons, just to kind of maybe mix it up a little bit. It's nothing against Nola. I think he's, a great pitcher. For especially history wise in the Phils, man, he's starting to really rack up the wins. But I think I would have liked to have seen Wheeler myself.
Yeah,
all right,
definitely.
So the other day, we know what happened to Rhys Hoskins. What was the first thing that went through your mind, Joey, when you got the news?
A little depressed and a little concerned. And I say that for a couple different reasons. Is just because, I think the Phillies have plans for what they want to do with Rhys,
and
I think all of that's kind of been put on hold.
James, how about you? When you got the news, I don't know were you watching the game, James, or no?
I was doing basically another project, but I did hear about it. My mom actually told me when she came back home, and I was like, "Did you hear about Rhys Hoskins?" And I was like, "No, what?" And she's like, "Hey, he tore his ACL," and I was like, "Wait, what?" And right. I mean, I saw the play, and I was like, "Oh no, that's not good."
Non-contact when a guy drops like that, clutching at his knee, man, it's bad. It's bad.
It reminds me a little bit of
that. Darren Sproles and that Super Bowl year, right? It was just an instant, not even like an urgent injury, just like a big. It was just like you said, non-contact, and he just
It
Like
reminded me a little bit of the Ryan Howard
Yeah.
that's what I thought of too.
in 2010 when he swung and he barely even made it to. He couldn't get to first. Like that's
And
what it
then the Phillies
reminded me
won.
of.
Mike Laro says Miguel Sanyo is still available.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts, Joey?
That's interesting.
It's serviceable, but I've said this before. I don't believe that because of how much the logjam is at first in the organization. I don't believe you have to still bring in
I
a body.
concur. I concur. I would like to see Hall in
Yeah.
there with regularity. I think they were going to try and do some of that anyway. Obviously, now when you don't have Hoskins in the lineup, you're now going to be missing 25 to 30 home runs and 75 to 90 RBIs.
Yeah.
And that I don't think a Hall is ready to fill those shoes yet. But defensively, you're probably not going to get much worse than Rhys Hoskins at first base. I don't think anybody you slide over there in the interim while he's out is going to be worse defensively.
I think in like a kind of platoon perspective, they could get her over it. You have Derek Hall, who I like. You have the guy, with I'm blanking on his name now. The guy who's now in outfield but was shortstop. He can slide over to third and play for Alec Baum, and Baum could slide over to first.
Right.
I honestly like how they have some things set up. I still feel very strongly that they need to go get another utility outfielder. I know they have Josh Harrison, but I feel like they need, whether it's Dalton Guthrie or somebody else, they just need to bring in a guy because I kind of go back to that Bamboo
Brad Miller.
Brad what was that?
Brad Miller, I think.
Brad Miller, Bamboo Brad, where
Bamboo Brad.
he was a good utility bat off the bench, and when he came up, he always put a spark to that lineup. And we need not necessarily the starting lineup to need boosting. We need the bench because there needs to be situational hitting in this team.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
I agree.
I agree with that. I think the one thing I'll take out of it too is that I think what Derek Hall showed me in spring training, I think he might be like probably a good piece for quite a bit until, depending on what Reese's injury is going to be and how long he's going to be out for. Like you might have to get like Fuji said, like a Sano, or maybe somebody like I don't know who's out there. Maybe you guys switch up the lineup. You might have to put Bohm at first base.
Right. And
maybe.
it looks like Mike Laro's kind of in lockstep with that. Hall and Bohm will cover Reese.
That's what I was thinking too.
Fuji checking in said the Phils they do have a few options at first. Fuji.
Yeah.
He says why not Schwarber at first?
That's a possibility, but then you still have to keep in mind who do you put? This is why I'm urging the outfield because I understand that perspective, but then who's taking Schwarber's spot in the outfield?
Right.
That is the urgency. Is like just because you plug that one hole, you don't want to open up another hole.
So let me ask you guys this: are you still excited for this season? Are you still, I should say, as excited for this season as you were prior to Reese going down?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Look, we have one of the best acquisitions, knowing how stacked we were going into the World Series already.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We got one of the best acquisitions in this past offseason. And in Trey Turner. And I feel like he is the linchpin to what this team is going to be, not just this season, but for seasons going forward.
Fuji says hell yeah to that comment too. And then Dave Arnold checking in. Too bad Segura isn't here anymore. We miss him now. Yeah. I mean, we could have, we definitely could have used them. We definitely could have used them, in a supplementary role for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I to answer my own question, I'm definitely still as excited for this season. I mean, think about some of the players that you have in this lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Harper comes back, and Turner, and Schwarber, and it's you're like, hey, everybody, don't forget they bolstered the bullpen, and
Great gamble.
and their starters aren't too shabby either.
Well,
Yeah.
let me put this out there because
Sign Tom Kelly. Norm says sign Tom Kelly to play first. I'm down.
Yeah, I'm game.
I'm
he
down.
probably field better than Reese. But
Just keep the dollar dogs coming.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
we'll
there
have
you go.
Fanatics shooting from the bullpen.
That's perfect.
Anyhow, so
Dollar donut every night of the week.
I would sit there and go like this. You got to keep in mind that there's 3 players on the Phillies that were basically in the starting lineup for Team USA in the World Baseball Classic. Think about how that even sounds. I go back to, we talked about it last week about, the World Baseball Classic and is it in the right place? And we brought up about the hockey and when hockey did it midseason. Well, can you remember a time when Team USA had 3 starters from the Flyers?
Right.
I couldn't even tell you.
Right. That's just like, so now parallel that to the World Baseball Classic and 3 pretty much starters for Team USA were your Philadelphia Phillies.
I mean now you've had Flyers, you've had more than 3 Flyers throughout the teams.
Yes.
Back in your LeClaire, Lindros, Renberg days.
Right.
And but I mean not on Team USA.
Right.
Fuji says a legit leadoff hitter and base stealer in Turner and the burner. The best bullpen in years. I totally agree with that, Fuji. At least on paper, right? And we have to preface. I always like to preface things. I used to get excited about teams, and then I realized that on paper thing is a legit thing. You can't get too up and too down. The Eagles looked phenomenal on paper last year at the start of the season, but we didn't know, hey, is Hassan Reddick going to be what we want him to be? And he started out a little slow just to get his feet under him, a couple of games, and then he just turned into a monster. So same with this Phillies team. On paper, they look outrageous. So we just got to, hope and pray that on paper thing equates to on the field and,
Just keep in mind, the Mets on paper, before all the injuries and all the things that happened in the last month, looked good too.
Yes, they did.
And now, a month later, due to all the injuries and all the other circumstances, they don't look so good now.
Exactly. Lauro says Soto is going to be great this year.
Yeah, that's who it was, Soto.
Yeah, I can't disagree, man. I'm so excited about this team. So if you had to look into your crystal ball and make a prediction and not pain like Clubber Lang, where do you think, and I'm not going to go, I'm just going to stay in the division. Where do you think the Phils will end up in the NL East after 162 games?
I think they win the division clean. I think the Braves will be
real clean or like
no. I think
out.
five games. 5 games.
That's real clean.
Yeah,
that's real clean.
That's real clean.
If they win the NL East, with 5. So what are you looking at? 95 to 97 wins this season?
Yeah, and I get that our boy Frank said that there's not going to be one team 100 wins, but I disagree with that. I feel like there's a top end and a bottom end to this league, and you saw a lot of the players that left some teams that were stacked to go to teams that are kind of in the midst of rebuilding.
Hey, look, here's a shocker. Dave picking the Braves to win the division and the Phils to come in second place.
Shocker.
Go figure.
I'm surprised he's not picking the Mets like he did last year. But and look, that wasn't a completely bad take.
No, it definitely wasn't a bad take.
But my point is that I feel like the Phillies are primed to win the division this year only because of look how much they can put out on a day-to-day basis because of some of their depth.
Fuji's calling 96 wins for the Fighting Phils this year.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing that makes it even more great about what happened last year, and it can happen again this year. I mean, just getting there was probably the best thing that happened to this club, and it reminds me so much of there's in baseball, you never know what's going to happen. You don't know who's the best team, and even the best team necessarily don't even win it. It's who's the hottest team.
Yep.
It's probably the best team that probably gets the most impressive stuff, other than the Astros. But like in the NL, I mean, like for years we lost to two Cinderella teams. I mean, the Giants was one, and even the and then
Colorado.
Cardinals. Yeah, Colorado
Yeah.
too. Yep. I mean, the other thing that I like about it too is that nothing's guaranteed. So if Dave says they're gonna go to second place, I'm good with that. It doesn't care. I don't care if they win the division. Just get there.
Mike
again.
Laro says 97 for me, 2 more than the Braves. And then Dave says, with Harper and Hoskins being done, no chance, Joey. Harper's not done. He'll be back.
Harper's not done, Dave.
He'll be
Dave,
back.
I'll say the same thing that I said when you were still on the show. The cavalry's coming. Everybody needs to relax.
Right.
MV3 is coming soon. So hang tight, guys.
Absolutely. You know, I can't wait till this lineup. I mean, obviously minus Reese is in full display. I'll be getting tickets to that game. And you know where I'll be going to get tickets? Sherry's Ticket Town. Great prices, no hidden fees. Sports, concerts, theater. If you use the promo code EOP, you get 10% off your purchase. The price you see is the price you get. Head on over to www.sherrystickets.com. It's a family-owned business, owned and operated since 1946. That's sherrystickets.com. So, boys, I would love to make a little transition here. Super excited about the Phils, but there is a basketball team in this town that I know they lost last night to the Warriors. I know they got the Suns tonight.
Yeah.
They're on that West Coast swing. I'm going to ask you this question, and we've asked this question for the last 3 years. When it comes to this team, around this time, and this particular player, is Joel Embiid hands down the favorite to win the MVP, James?
No, there's no question, Tom. And I think that's the one thing. I mean, we've been saying that for like you said, for the last 3 years, and it's hard to believe he has a one probably in those probably other years to maybe obviously last year he should have won, and no question about it. And a year after that, but this team is so enjoyable to watch. And the one thing I like about it too, I was telling Damon and Tom, I was telling Damon and Joey this last week. Tyrese Maxey has been stepping up a lot.
So he's back. He's officially because I know he struggled a little bit earlier in the season. I'm sorry, James. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, you're good.
But does you have the feeling like he is back 100%?
Oh yeah, definitely. The one thing I like about it too is that when James Harden sets up plays, when he shifts it off to Maxey or Embiid, the facilitating that he does is pretty astounding when you really look down at it. And Embiid's just I call Embiid the Don, and basically this is his year. I think if Joel Embiid is the MVP, we might be going places with this club. And I think Embiid, if he's not the MVP, then this is just another. I wouldn't say a disaster season, but sometimes you have to give the guy his props.
Joseph Marks, you were waiting patiently to respond to that question. I'll ask you the same thing: is Joel Hans Embiid the hands down MVP in your eyes?
It depends on what MVP trophy you're talking about. If you're talking about the most valuable player, absolutely. If you're talking about the most valuable participant that they've been handing out to
perfect attendance award.
Right. If it's just the participation award that they've been handing out for the last 2 seasons, then no, Joel Embiid's not going to win it because he doesn't participate enough, apparently. But if you talk about a body of work and what a player means to the value of a player to a team, to a league, to a position like the center position, because let's be honest, there's not many stout, certifiable centers in this league anymore.
Well, the center position, to your point, the center position, has transformed. The only other position on that floor is the stretch four. In my opinion, in the last 20 years, that has transformed more than the center.
Yep.
As far as I'm concerned, because now I still think Shaq would be dominant in this league. I do.
Mm-hmm.
However, Hack a Shaq, Hack a Ben, those were real things. When you have a center that can shoot the three with some consistency,
Mm-hmm.
that can drive, that can dribble, that can play uh, underneath, outside, and it has the defense that Joel. I mean, like the guy is the total package.
I
Right.
go back to something that LeBron deemed Kristaps Porzingis when he was drafted as the unicorn. LeBron deemed
Right,
him that.
right.
I disagree. I think that
Joel is,
Joel Embiid is the unicorn
yeah,
because he does everything that Porzingis does, but so much better and so much more intricate.
Mm-hmm.
Porzingis doesn't do it with a sustainable level of success. He doesn't do it as eloquently and athletically as Joel does it. Like this is the thing is I have been on this show waving the flag, yelling from the mountaintops that Joel Embiid is your MVP. In my mind, he is your reigning MVP, despite what NBA and Adam Silver might want to tell you. Joker is a joke. He's a good player, but he's a joke of an MVP because he only plays one side of the court. And if you're talking about valuable player, last time I checked, you should evaluate value in a player by what they do on both sides of the court, not just one.
right. I mean, that's the that's the key right there, right? If you have some of these great players in this league, comes to their defense. I mean, Harden's a prime example.
Mhm.
He's I wouldn't say he's a liability on defense, but he's very close to a liability on defense. Um, a kid like Maxi's working. He's working at it.
Mm-hmm.
He's
Yeah, I mean
and he's
that's the
working.
thing I take out of it. Oh, I'm sorry, Tom.
No, go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say I was like here. I was seeing what Dave's comment was and said the Sixers are a second round knocking, and I'm like, for what are you talking about? I mean, the team is the best team in basketball right now. I don't care if they like win the number one seed or the second seed. I mean, they're locked into the three. I'm
Yeah,
going with
yeah.
them.
We'll get into that the seeding in a couple here,
I mean, come
but
on, Dave. That's ridiculous.
To respond
look,
to Dave, that he's
look.
taking the
Go
low
ahead.
hanging comments of what the consensus is out there. It's
I get that.
easy to make that. It's easy to make that statement because what's happened in the last couple seasons.
That I totally agree, Joe. Look,
And
I
and that's
can't
the,
I
and look,
can't
I
disagree
don't
with
disagree
Dave
with
until
that
this
either.
team proves. I can't disagree with what Dave says until this team can
Right.
prove
I get it.
otherwise. And if you're going as history is gospel, then
Right.
yeah, second round there's a good chance that can happen again.
I mean, he's
But
not wrong.
what I would
I'm
say
not
to
saying he's
Dave,
wrong or anything, but
what
I'm
I
just
would
saying.
what I
Go
would
ahead.
say to Dave is that I'm not saying Dave is wrong, but what I would say is that there's always that possibility. You have to break the trend at some point.
Right.
Exactly.
Probably, in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2000, 2001, never
Mhm.
won a game in under 40-degree weather on the road and all this stuff. And then that's why they call bucking a trend, because it's a trend for a period of time. So
Until
I
hopefully,
mean, I go
until
to like
the
the March
camel's off the back.
right.
right,
I go to like the March Madness with a couple teams like San Diego State and Creighton. Both have not been to the Elite Eight in the modern era, and they
Mhm.
both made it. So like
Right.
you have to buck the trend at some point. At some point, the trend is going to break. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah. That's the thing. I agree to disagree with Dave. It's like this. I mean, I agree that like they have like a trend that they're always not like they always never
Right.
get to the third round to the champion to the conference final, and I understand that. But the one thing I look at it too is just that I mean it's just I mean I'm not like shipping off and shaping out this season just yet. I'm just
no.
enjoying the ride.
Well, I mean, you can't too. I realize the Sixers have lost a couple of games here, but going over the body of work in the last third of the season, this team is playing as good as any team in the NBA. Is Edge of Philly Sports checks in? Is it me, or is Joe Marks always trying to buck something? LOL.
No, I think you mean that with an F, not something.
Oh my god! We'll keep it PG. We'll keep it PG.
I didn't say it.
I know you
Yep.
didn't. I know you didn't.
I gotta
You know,
keep. I gotta tone my swearing down too. But that's
nah,
how we're passionate.
absolutely, and we got a lot of fire. Listen,
Yep.
if Harden's on the floor last night, do you think the Sixers beat the Warriors?
No.
No.
No. Because I don't think it had anything to do with the star power. I think it had to do with the supporting cast. And Joel has made this clear a couple times, and you've heard it, and it feels like it's been preached to these guys, and we're all blue in the face from it. And
Yeah.
you got to be more aggressive. I felt
Right.
like they were like George Niang and Maxey towards the bottom 3 minutes, the last 3 minutes of that game, just passed up shots. They just passed up opportunities, and they passed it to Joel, and they said, "Okay, big man, you take us home." And it's like the guy had 48 points last night. So this is a guy that did everything in his power, but you guys got to do everything in your power. When the big man says it's your turn, go. He's expecting you to step up.
He's had 43 games of 30 points or more this year.
Ho hum.
43 games.
Ho hum. I mean, everybody can score 30 points, right, Tom? I mean,
yeah, right. Look, I don't care what anybody says. Dropping I gotta see, and I'm gonna look it up here. I gotta see what his average is throughout the season, because it's been he's on another level right now than even last year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Every year he didn't win the MVP. The next year he came out and played better.
Well, I even go one step further. There were a couple years ago, and I know everybody here had heard it because it was so present in the Philly sports media, that people questioned whether Joel Embiid was the star power that the Sixers needed for the future, because he couldn't stay healthy. They felt like he was soft. He was out of shape. All these different things. Like, people were denigrating this guy. They were basically writing his ticket out of town. However, ever since then, it just felt like Joel said, "Okay, y'all don't believe in me? Fine. I'll just make you guys believers."
His average this season is 33.4 points a game.
Right.
That's disgusting.
Understand something. When Allen Iverson won the scoring title, I think he only averaged a little over 32. And so when Joel Embiid at a center position is averaging more than Allen, who was a prominent guard, that ought to tell you something.
Dave Yarnell says, TK, honest, does anyone in the NBA play defense anymore seriously?
No.
I think your guy Ben was the last one who played actual defense, Dave.
Now we just play defense.
We haven't been getting our Ben updates though, so we don't know what's going on.
It's fine. He's playing defense against the wooden bench.
Yeah. He is not going to let that bench onto the court.
No.
He's going to sit on it.
He's doing a really good job of it. He's really doing a good job.
Ben on the bench.
100%. Look, does it matter to you guys if the Sixers are the second seed or the third seed, or God forbid, even the fourth seed if they drop? Does it matter to you, Joey? I'll start with you.
No, it doesn't. Only because at this point, I would have liked to have seen them capture the first seed, but it just doesn't seem like that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So at this point, you have to either, whether you're 2 or 3 or 4, you're going to get what you're going to get as far as the opponents. They're all going to look pretty much the same in the first round or two. It's going to be who you face if you get past the second round in that Eastern Conference Finals. But now, if you're the 2, 3, or 4, there's a higher chance, and Frank brought this up the other week, is that there's a higher chance you're going to wind up facing either the Bucks or the Celtics before you get to the third round.
Right. Right. To me personally, and then James, I'll kick the same question to you. To me personally, I just want them in the playoffs, which obviously they'll be in the playoffs. And then I want to pick apart how they're playing, what they're doing, what adjustments on the fly that, Doc Rivers is making, how Embiid looks, their health. Like, I want to pick it all apart. I don't care what place they're in at this point. I just want to see. I want to see some results. I want to see um, a solid first round win. I want to see them move past the second round. Once they break that trend, once if and when
Mm-hmm.
they move past the second round, now we're talking. Now it's still not house money, but it's a lot more like, okay, we're here. We got the monkey off our back.
Yep.
Let's go. James, how about you? What are your thoughts on what seed they enter the playoffs at?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the one thing I take out of it too. Just getting there is the most important thing to do. Obviously, I mean, look, they're playing really good basketball right now. I mean, the players. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, Maxi's been stepping it up, and Embiid, basically having another MVP season. If not, then there's something wrong with the NBA, hands down. But it all depends on what they do in the playoffs too. Like if they make a good postseason run, and they like hopefully this year will be like sometime the camel has to come off the back, and sometimes maybe hopefully this year will be probably another good season. Hopefully they can move one step further, go into the conference final, and then probably go into maybe the NBA finals. But hopefully right now, but just right now, like they look really good. That's the one thing I take out of it too.
I'll ask this question to both of you because I know, Tom, you may not ask this week, but you will eventually ask this at some point down the road,
Mm-hmm.
and that is, will Doc be on the hot seat as far as when the playoffs start, which they'll be starting very shortly?
Mm-hmm.
Like, will he then be on the hot seat?
It's a good question. I mean, it's. I guess you have to realize that because you've been in like so many like first second round exits and a matter of so many times, and it's only a matter of time to give the. I mean,
And
I don't know,
blame
man.
Doc for those exits. That's why I'm.
Well, yeah, that's the thing too, and usually Doc plays a little bit quirky sometimes, like just plays a little bit concerning, but yeah, I guess if he doesn't go far this year, you might have to realize, you might have to give Doc Rivers his. I guess you have to let Doc go. I guess. I mean, that's a very good question, though.
Yeah, to answer your question, if we're getting the same stagnant second round exit,
Mm-hmm.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results type
Right.
end to this season, then he's got to go.
Yeah.
He's got to go. And I know that Joey, when I've posed this question prior with Brett Brown and other, well, who would you replace him with? And I don't have an answer for that right now.
What about Sam Cassell? What do you think about that?
I would lean towards promoting Sam Cassell.
Mm-hmm.
But again, right now, I got to stay laser focused on what's in front of us.
Yeah,
that's true.
And there's been I had a conversation with a mutual friend of ours, Tom, that was talking about Jay Wright. Now, Jay Wright's been on the selection shows for March Madness, but Jay Wright and the way that the Knicks have been kind of making Villanova North in New York, that there's rumors that Jay Wright could be heading to the NBA and coaching the Knicks next year. Now,
they're going to give it to Thibodeau?
Right. Because if the Knicks fail,
I would be heartbroken.
That would devastate me.
Well, this is why I bring up about the hot seat, and I'm glad that Tom brought up about how I responded when that question was posed about Brett Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Who would I get to replace Doc with? I would get someone like Jay Wright for two reasons. Number one, because I don't want him to go to the Knicks. That is a primary thing. Number two, because eventually there has to be a transfer over of youth into this team, and the best coach to coach youth and young men is a former college coach that's one of the better college coaches out there.
I mean, look, you're looking at what, a two-time national champion?
Yeah.
You are looking at a guy who knows this town like the back of his hand.
Yep.
He knows how the fans are. He knows how the fans react. Um, uh, Intelligent, basketball IQ off the charts.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if there was anyone to take over, Sam, because if he wasn't available, I would lean towards Sam Cassell. But yes, Jay Wright, 110%. Before we move on from the Sixers, I have a conspiracy theory that I want to ask about you guys. I want to ask you guys about.
Sure.
If Embiid doesn't win the MVP again this year, is he being made to suffer because of the process? Because you know how he aptly named himself the process.
Yeah.
Is he being made to suffer for the process's sins?
Yeah, to kind of better frame frame what you're saying. Do I think he's got a scarlet letter on him because of that nickname to the NBA? Yeah, I do. Because if you look at like the way that Adam Silver and other officials in the NBA have come out and said, well, we don't like the way that the Sixers outwardly did it. Now, look, Oklahoma City, even with other towns like Houston, these teams are actually doing what the process was. They're just not outwardly saying it. They're not putting a name to it. Like the process is a name. It's a moniker that we put into our rebuilding process. And Embiid, instead of running from it like stars would normally do, he embraced it. And shame on the NBA and Adam Silver for a guy that is a star embracing a moniker that invokes working hard. Shame on the NBA.
Yeah, I agree, Joe. I think the one thing the process thing, it's just that I don't want to go there yet with that conspiracy because I think it's still a good close league. But I think with Embiid, it just shows me that if he wants to be the MVP and he wants to continue playing at an MVP level, we could say that until we're blue in the face that we could say he's the best player in all basketball right now.
My cousin Ryan checking in. He said, "Yo, fellas, what's up, Rye?
What's going on, Ryan?"
Right. I would kind of add to that, James, and say this, and it's something that Tom's mentioned on this show before about different players, including possibly Embiid. You got to have a guy that when all else fails, when everything else is against you, that he's just going to cut your throat and he's going to take it. He's not going to ask permission. He'll ask for forgiveness later and he'll just take it. And that's the mentality I think Embiid is playing with this season. He's tired of getting looked over just because it's this close with Jokic. He's like, no, screw you. I'm just going to take everybody's heart.
If he's going to give an offer that he couldn't refuse.
Right. If Joel Embiid does not win MVP this year, it's a crime. He's going to need proper. He should sue. He needs proper representation. And then speaking of proper representation, can't forget my guy David Archeri Esquire, 610-565-0300, workman's compensation, motor vehicle accidents, personal injury, and criminal law. And if Joel Embiid does not get MVP this year, it is criminal law. www.cherryinjurylaw.com. And tell Dave the boys at Pattison Ave and Edge of Philly Sports sent you.
Yes, now, I'm sure that Damon is on the phone with him in an extensive meeting with Joel Embiid right now, explaining to him that very thing, Tom.
Look,
right there with you.
That's probably why Dame didn't make the show today, and I understand.
I get it.
So we're in full-fledged off season for the Philadelphia Eagles. Number one question that I had on my mind: has Howie Roseman brought back too many old players, Joey?
No.
Okay, expound, please.
Yeah, because I go back to the day that will live in infamy to me, and that was the day that Brian Dawkins was not re-signed as a Philadelphia Eagle, and everyone said his better years are behind him. I'm sorry, excuse me. He's one of the better safeties in the league, one of two that it would probably be first ballot Hall of Famer, and he is a Hall of Famer. The idea that someone like Brandon Graham, someone like Fletcher Cox, someone like Jason Kelsey, who, here's a news flash, folks. Jason Kelsey is going to the Hall of Fame. It's
Yep.
not. It's not a maybe an if.
No,
It's a
first
when.
ballot.
It's a when.
No
when
question.
will he go? Not if he'll go.
Dabby
So-
McNasty checking in loved some Weapon X. I think we all did that.
Yes.
I think we all
Definitely.
love Brian Dawkins.
So-
Gotta love him.
Understand something. I would understand that argument if someone like Brandon Graham had 2 sacks last season, and you
Right.
just bring him back for a nostalgic deal.
Yeah.
This guy took less money, but had,
And he had a career year. Yep.
season
Yep.
last year. No, this is not a bad situation. No, not at all.
All right, James. How about you? You think they brought back too many old players?
Absolutely not. I think that the one thing I love about what Howie has done this offseason is that he's keeping the players just to see if they want to play with Jalen Hurts. That's what it comes down to. Because I think everybody who came, like a BG, a Kelsey, a Lane, they all want to come back and play with this quarterback. They want to play for the guy. I mean, if this was probably Carson Wentz, maybe they'll be like, I would rather just take my paycheck and retire. But they want to play with Jalen Hurts. That's the one thing I take out of it too.
You bring up a great point, James, and I thought about this long and hard a couple nights ago,
Mm-hmm.
and because that was brought up too on some of the sports talk, and Tom, me and you had this conversation. I believe we were on the phone after the game had ended. It was either me, you, and Al, or it was a combination of the three. And we were having this conversation because the Eagles had just gotten eliminated in the playoffs, and it was Carson, and it was suspected that it was Jason and Ertz's last seasons as Eagles.
Mhm.
And at the cameras were still rolling, and Jason and Zach, and I think maybe even Carson, I'm not entirely sure, but at least Jason
The last 3 on the field, right?
were the last 3 on the field.
Mhm. I remember.
And they were on the sidelines talking to each other, and Jason was just sitting on the bench, and he was just taking it in. And I think he was asking the question, do I want to still play not only for this team that I love, for this city that I love, but do I want to play for the quarterback that's got his hands up my butt? Like that, do I want to play for that guy? And because the center has to work in tandem with the quarterback.
Right.
I think it's kind of a admiration that Jason has stuck around, but more to the point, when Jalen Hurts, a young quarterback, a young underrated quarterback that he came in as, Jason handed him the reins as a leader. He said, "Here, it's your locker room now." That takes gumption, balls, and intelligence for Jason Kelsey to do that to any young player.
I
Yeah.
agree. Dude, you got me with
Hurts
the
is a leader,
you got me with the hands up my butt thing, man. That was I was glad you were talking because I started giggling to myself. And to answer my own question,
You got to trust that person.
and
They have a hand.
plus a process, especially if there's a hand up your butt.
Yeah.
But as far as I'm concerned, had they brought back
Where's Pat when you need him?
run of the mill veterans,
Yeah.
that would have that would have swayed me to say yes. I think they brought back too many older players, but I mean, like you said, Kelsey's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yep.
Lane Johnson, he's probably a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Mhm.
Fletcher, BG, a lot of these guys. I don't think it's a nostalgic thing. I think it's a I think they could have given Fletcher a little less.
Yeah. Well,
but,
he took $4 million less than he did last year. So
right,
he still
and
took a pay cut.
BG definitely gave him a hometown discount.
Yes.
Because, like James said, these guys definitely want to play with Jalen Hurts. There's something about
right.
this kid.
Mhm.
All
Yeah,
right,
I mean,
boys.
let me counter that real quick with the Fletcher Cox thing. I don't think he's going to see a lot of the field, but I think he's going to try to groom Jordan Davis into what Fletcher Cox was supposed to be. Same thing with BG. They're basically going to be just going to be grooming the young guys to basically down the road take over their spot.
Listen,
Ryan,
Cox is going to be the teacher of
Yeah.
these young kids.
Yeah, right.
That's what he's being paid for.
Ryan, I'll get to your
Exactly.
question in 1 second, but guys, all right, it's time. Here, this is the question that everybody's been talking about. It's had sports talk radio on fire for the last 2 days. Do you bring in Zeke Elliott to
God,
put in
no.
your backfield?
Tom,
James?
I am so glad you brought this question up.
You know I'm not going to leave
I'll let
that
you go
one
first,
floating
buddy.
out there in the ether. Go ahead, Joey.
Because last week on this show, yours truly brought this to a head. And now all of a sudden, people are listening. Listen, I have to say, yes, I would bring Zeke in. Because
Okay.
unlike what James and everybody had said last week about the DeMarco Murray thing, this is apples and oranges. If I'm bringing Zeke in, he's getting 2 or 3 million. He's not getting 23 million like Murray got. Understand something. If Zeke comes in and with his little crop top comes in and says, I want 10 million, Howie's going to say, okay, listen, you go out that door, you hit a left, 2 rights, and you're going to hit 95. The airport is about 10 minutes away. Good luck with your future endeavors. Because 10 million, we just let a guy go who was in our system because he wanted too much money. You think you're going to walk in from from enemy lines and get more? You're out of your mind. But what I think Zeke brings to the table is short yardage captain.
Yes. 3rd down and 3s.
Touchdown machine.
Goal line. Yep. When you're a little bit too far for the tush push, that's when you bring him in. He is a specialist.
He had 12 touchdowns in the red zone last year, and he shared duties with Tony Pollard. I mean, I'll take 12 touchdowns for $3 million. Sure.
Right. No, look, 100%. That's a bargain. That's a bargain. So, James, what are your thoughts on bringing in Zeke, James?
No. That's all I got to say. I'm sorry. I don't mean to ruin your day, Joey. I don't mean to ruin anybody's day who's pro Zeke. He's done, dude. He's done. Okay. I would have a better chance, like Ryan said, to get Bijan Robinson or any of these just draft a player. I mean, here's the other thing that I really like about it too. The one thing I like about what Howie has done, the running back core down the road is going to be even more complex without Zeke. Like if Zeke just comes in here, look, you're only going to get him for only a 3rd down play. But I'm like, you know what? It's not even worth it. I've been through this hundreds of times with the Cowboys. I don't need any more. I don't need any more ex-Cowboys coming in here and treating our team like dog crap. I can't take that. I'm sorry. He's old, guys. I'm sorry.
Does the money make a difference? Because with DeMarco Murray, he made so much money, and he got the whole O.J. Simpson coverage where they had an overhead helicopter follow him, getting off the plane and getting in the car and driving to the NovaCare complex. We had John Clark on the ground telling us when he walked in the door. I'm like, okay, what did this guy do to deserve all this? But with Zeke, it wouldn't be anything close to that. So, does the money matter? If it's only $3 million, does that make a difference in your opinion, or do you stay steadfast to what you feel?
I don't think it's the money necessarily. That's going to be the problem. It's going to be like how much are we going to give him, and how much is going to be a factor in our offense. I don't know if he's going to be that much of a factor. Like I said, I think he's just going to be a waste of time, honestly.
Okay.
Sorry to break it to you guys.
That's a fair opinion. You don't think you could use Zeke in a LeGarrette Blount type way, James, for less than you gave LeGarrette Blount?
Well, you can get that with Rashad Penny. I think you can get that and then you can probably draft somebody.
My cousin Ryan was asking if you think they're going to. Do you think Harry would draft Bijan Robinson?
Yeah, I'll bring in Bijan Robinson. Yeah,
I would. I don't think Howie's going to use where he would go. I don't know if Howie would draft that high.
It would be a
Running back.
first round pick, wouldn't it?
I wouldn't think that high, but I think he'll be like either second or third round.
I think he'd go in the 30s. That's where I project him going.
Yeah,
somewhere in the 30s. And I mean, what do we have? Do we have a pick in the 30s?
We have a second round pick, which would be in the late 30s, I believe, early
Okay.
40s, late 30s. So
I mean,
around that realm.
That'll bring me to my next question. What two positions would you focus on in this draft? If you had to focus on two positions, well, let's say your first and second picks, what positions in order for 1 and 2 would you go with drafting wise? I'll start with me. I'm going to probably draft a D end 1, some depth on that O line for sure, and then probably a corner, another corner or a safety 2.
You just
go ahead, James.
Yeah, I was gonna say you basically just talked about the same thing I would get. I would get a defensive end at first. I would probably get Calais County from Pittsburgh, from Pitt, and probably a cornerback like Kelly Ringer out of Georgia.
Love your Georgia Bulldog.
Yeah, he's been on the Ringo thing.
Woo-wee!
So watch out, Eagles fans.
Ringo's going to be a star, brother.
Watch out, because if the Eagles
He's got blisters on his fingers.
If the Eagles draft Ringo, you will see James Scourger streaking down Broad Street. I was just promising you that.
Trust me, dude. I lost my mind last year when we got Nakobe Dean.
Oh, I'm sure. I know.
We woke up the whole entire neighborhood, but I don't care.
But I kind of go a different route.
James, weren't we at the live remote when they drafted Dean?
Yes,
you know, the funny fact is I was at Marty McGee's but then the draft was starting to get a little bit late, and I was like, they're not going to probably draft Nakobe Dean.
No. We were at the Red Lantern, all of us. We were at the Red Lantern when they drafted Nakobe Dean, right?
No, that was the
Friday night they drafted him. It was in the third round.
Yeah, third round. We were at the Red Lantern for the third day.
Oh, that's right.
So
Dabby McNasty says linebacker and D-backer, DB and O-line depth. I can't argue with that either. They're great. And then Fuji says we could definitely use a pass rusher, hopefully a premier pass rusher. All great out takes there, boys.
So that Calais County fellow reminds me. Like they said, he's the next Aaron Donald. I would love to bring him in.
So this is going to come 100%. As no shock to anybody on this panel. I want the Eagles to, in my first two, I want a safety and I want a linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I want a guy. I want a guy that can stand next to Nakobe Dean, and it can be like Ray Lewis and Terrell Suggs. I want. We have our Suggs. I want my Ray Lewis.
Dave said, he was jumping up and down like a crazy person when Dean was drafted. Mike Laro said,
I was, brother. I was.
Laro said the kid from Pitt will be there late round 1.
Yeah.
And Dabby McNasty said a DB at 10, maybe like a Drew Sanders or what's that? Kaminsky or I can't. What's say that name, James?
Adobe and Tom.
There you go.
We'll go with that. We'll go with that.
I mean, it's not
Bobby Wagner will be signed. I would take a Bobby Wagner as a specialist.
I heard a different person, especially when you talk about defensive line depth, and Mike Laura brought this up on the show. And as soon as he said the name, my eyes popped out of my head. Because if we could get him for cheap, he doesn't have the tread on the tires like he did once before, but I'll still take him. Khalil Mack. Like, if he's still out there, I would take a flyer on Khalil Mack. Because if you use him in the rotation and you put Khalil Mack in for like a third down setup, good luck.
You already got your speed and Dean.
Let me ask you, since I was talking about my Georgia
you could bring in a slower Khalil Mack on a third down run stop.
Right.
There you go.
Right.
Let me ask you, I think Frank brought it up last week. I'm not too crazy about Jalen Carter, but what do you guys think about that?
It's an interesting story because his pro day didn't really speak to what he really
That's
could
where I
do.
was at too.
And for the most part, here's the way that I've always saw prospects that come into the NFL draft. And
Mhm.
Nakobe Dean was a prime example of this.
Yeah.
Nakobe did not have a good pro day. And
Right.
he fell due to all these rumors swirling about his injuries and his stamina and all of this. But then you got to remember, prior to that draft night,
Mhm.
Nakobe Dean was projected to be a first round pick, and he
Mhm.
dropped to round 3.
Right.
So I sat there and watched the draft with my buddy, and I said, "Did we just get a first round projected pick in the 3rd round?" He's like, "Yes, we did." I was like,
Yeah, we
"I don't
did.
care. I don't care if he's got injury problems. I don't care if he's got issues. With this Carter kid, I don't. Regardless of his legalities and some of his headspace during his pro day, I'll take the line from our captain Tom. If he can fly, he's my guy. I don't care. Like
Right.
that's what matters. What happens in between the hash marks and in between the whistles, that's what matters the most. I
Mhm.
do not care about, you know, if he can perform at that level that he did when he was in college,
Right.
Mhm.
that's the thing that matters the most. Not a pro day, not a combine, not a skills competition, not anything like that. When the whistle blows and
Yeah.
between the hash marks.
On the field.
Gotcha.
Yep.
On the field. Absolutely. Well, listen, boys. It's been an awesome show. I'm glad to be back. We did just an hour today, but we'll stretch it out a little bit more next week. But for James Scorza, for Joe Marks, Frank Finnegan, Damon Salim, for all our Pattison Ave Fanatics family out there, I'm Tom Kelly. This is Pattison Ave Fanatics Show, and we're out of here.
Later.